Welcome back to a bit Gamey and the February update. Actually, when I first started this ages back, and I was going to do Napoleonics, because coming from Airfix, that was the ancients, Napoleonics, and World War II was the thing. But because of the two things, one, there was the attack column, the French attack column. It just didn't look meaty enough to me unless it was a bigger number of figures. So there was that, and also squares for the cavalry. Wanted some percentage of some number of figures that would fit forming a square easily. And so the problem with that, of course, is if you're going to use a small table, you're kind of a bit stuffed, because these 36 figure battalions are too big for a small table. So I was stuck then. So I gave up on that and decided to do horse and muskets. So this is the how far I've got so far, using these 12 figure battalions for smaller size, blah blah blah, and initially anyway, I'm going to use the 1 hour wargame rules as the basis for the rules. I mean, it'll change over time. I'll be messing about with it, and if I get a bigger table, I'll want to probably make them into proper brigades with command figures and all that jazz. But initially, I just need a small number of small units for each side. So it's basically using the 1 hour wargame rules. It's four line battalions, 2 light, 2 cavalry, and 2 artillery, and then you roll a dice to get a random connection of those figures for your army, or 2 armies. One army's going to make in from using the Marlborough, Warlord Marlborough plastics. These are nice enough. We've got the flags that come with the package. So that's the first 2, and then these other ones. These are from they're from the Marlborough War of Spanish Succession, and these are 7 Years of War Austrians. I say I'm not worrying too much about which war they come from. I'm just going to treat it all as they get whatever I fancy, and if it works out, then I'll make proper armies out of them, with accurate history and generals and such. But in the meantime, I'm just going to use a bit of whatever I like the look of. So yeah, so 12 man. That's the first 4 of the 8 line battalions. There's going to be 4 from the Warlord plastics. I've got the figures already. I haven't got the command figures, and these are Crusader 7 Years War Austrians. So yes, that's all pretty good. The I was originally going to do them on 40 mil bases, which would be a little bit smaller. But then I fancied experimenting with these bases, where you place the figures in individually. So well, got them. And the reason for doing that was, the original reason, I don't know how it'll work out in the end, was that in games like Black Powder, you have like a stamina rating or whatever. It's like the number of hit points, and as you take casualties, you keep a tally of how many there are. So a lot of people use these casualty markers with a dice to show how many hits they have, how many hits they've had. Whereas I fancied taking them off. Not all of them. It's the historically what happened in that time period is that you as they took casualties, they'd gradually move to the centre. So that'd be how it gives you kind of a visual indication of how damaged they are, which I like the idea of. But that makes the bases slightly wider, because these bases are 50 mil, whereas a standard sort of square base is just have 40 mil. It's a little bit longer. Also, they fall over all the time, which is a bit of a pain. So it might be better to do it because I'm sort of thinking that the centre point will be fixed. So I'm thinking maybe change it so that the command base is all glued on, and maybe even these two on the inside, two there and two there, are glued on, and just leave these last four for your casualty representation. You know, I like the idea. I like the again, in terms of game terms, there's no point really, but I just like the idea of it, that that as your army is getting damaged, you get a visual representation of the damage. So that's that. So so I'm mostly happy with that. With just that minor caveat. The other thing is, I was on this experiment, was there's these square-based versions. Where the guys are on a square base, which are slightly better in terms of solidity. They sort of hang together slightly better. But I didn't realise until afterwards that these are slightly bigger. It's only a few mil, but you do sort of notice the gap between the bases is slightly more. So I decided I was going to go with these round ones. So I'm going to I'll either have to leave these or try and take them off the base and put them on one of these round ones. So that's that. The experiment is fine so far. I'm a bit dubious about them all falling out of their holes, but apart from that, it's I'm quite pleased with it. I think this is the way I'm going to be doing the Horse and Musket, because in the 1 hour war game rules, the Horse and Musket period includes Napoleonics. But I'm just going to separate it out and have these, the pre-Napoleonics is as a separate thing. What else is there to say? Yeah, so the 2 boxes of ones like these Barbarian Warlord things, they have 24 figures each, which will be, but there's only 2 lots of command figures. So by having 8 in each one, I've got another. So it's basically another 24 figures, 12 in each one rather. There's 24 figures, so that divides into 3 lots of 8 infantry. So I need 3 more sets of command figures, which is fine. But so I have to wait to get them to finish them off. Well, that'll give me then. There's 4. That'll give me the 4 line for that lot, and one lot of guards. And for these, I'm going to get some more of the Crusader ones. They have separate figures for the German half of Austria-Hungary and the Hungarian half. So I'll get a couple of enough figures for a couple of Hungarian battalions. That'll be the line infantry sorted out. So yes, that's basically it on that experiment, and that's all fine. So I'm just deciding whether to make the command base fixed, on a 50mm base, and just have the ones on either side being removable. So is that? Yeah, I think that's it. Oh yeah, and just mention the flags for the Warlord figures come with the box, and these ones for these Austrians from the Crusaders, they're flags of war, just in case that's of any interest to anyone. Another thing I got done this month was finally got around to getting some of these World War II Pegasus French infantry painted and based. That's about half of them. But yeah, I'm going to do a review of these, so I'll talk more about it on that. Although on the details, sorry. But anyway, this is finally got some people from my Germans to fight. Next thing was I painted these ages ago, these Greek cavalry. Couldn't decide how to base them, so I finally decided to do it, like this. But where they're sort of on half a base, so they slot together. But I was thinking, there's been an opportunity to start practicing doing some nicer basing, because I say when I was doing this 4 years ago, I just had bits of cardboard painted green for the basing, and this is just putting a bit of flock on is only slightly better. But these ones, because they're just one figure per base, I'm going to use that as for experimenting with the with what we call it, with terrain stuff, basically. Try and make prettier bases as part of learning about doing basing, and do the same with these command figures I had. I got originally for these ancients, and use them for practicing as well. Try and make the bases look more interesting. So that's kind of that's kind of like the my next step while I'm waiting for the command figures for those horse and musket figures. Another thing on the terrain side is I got a bunch of these vehicle bases from Warlords ages ago for tanks, but I think they're for 28mm, and they're a little bit big. They're a bit bigger than I want for my 20mm tanks. So I thought I'd use the base, because one of the things about looking at terrain videos and thinking about all that is how you can use pretty much anything. Any bits of scrap, you can just glue it to a bit of cardboard and turn it into something. So I'm going to use that for to make little kind of abstract abstract defensive trench work type stuff for the World War II. So that's what I'm going to do while I'm waiting for the the next set of figures for my horse and musket. I shall just do a little messing about with baby terrain, basically, and see where I get. But starting off with these, we're making these bases, these plain bases look a bit better, and these are defensive terrain. See where that gets me. But anyway, I think that's it. Okie doke, toodle bit.